All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. It is the third hour of the show. There are some new claims that have come out about how Montreal company Pornhub, what Montreal company Pornhub knew about child pornography on their website, and questions about how long it took for them to act on it. Emails, messages, external conversations have been made public, all as a result of a lawsuit in California. It raises concerns over how the company handled instances like this. With more, we go to Solomon Friedman, who's partner and VP of compliance at Ethical Capital Partners. Solomon, welcome to the program.
Oh, Elias, thank you very, very much for having me.
So let's just get one thing out of the way here, just on ownership. So Pornhub, I know a lot of people know that Pornhub, they have a lot of offices in Montreal. If you could just take us through Ethical Capital Partners. You now own MindGeek, the company. Can you tell us the ownership structure, what's in Montreal? Because I'd like some clarity on that first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank you, first of all, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to engage with media and to really put into practice our model of openness and transparency. So in March of 2023, Ethical Capital Partners acquired 100% of MindGeek. MindGeek is now named ALO, which is the owner of some of the biggest adult platforms, of course, most recognizably Pornhub. So this was a complete change of ownership. None of the previous owners are involved in any way. The group, Ethical Capital Partners, my partners and I, are publicly identified. We come from a broad range of backgrounds, including legal, like myself. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, public engagement, government relations, and even law enforcement. One of my partners is a former chief superintendent of the RCMP. And we entered this with an eye to bringing that sort of openness and responsibility to an industry that exists, that is not just legal in Canada, but it's constitutionally protected. But it's time for it to come into the 21st century, which is the Ethical Capital Partners view here of the work which ALO, formerly MindGeek, does with respect to keeping children safe, keeping users safe, and having a safe and responsible platform. So that is the ownership structure. We're easy to find. You can go to ethicalcapitalpartners.com, where it's very clear who we are and why we are involved in this work.
So can I ask you then, now that there is clearly some distance between Ethical Capital Partners and those that used to run Pornhub and the other websites, looking at the messages, all the filings, the court filings out of California, which paint a pretty dark picture of how Pornhub treated reports of child pornography 2019, 2020. What are your thoughts on what has come out in the open and public?
So as a lawyer, I know how important it is not to comment on little slivers of information that come out from ongoing litigation. I'll say this. As the ownership group, we are committed to just outcomes in all outstanding litigation. These court processes take time. Information is going to be revealed in the course of those proceedings. And obviously, at the end of the day, what is most important to us is that there are just outcomes. What we're focused on, and what I think it's important to highlight, is the state of compliance now. Because the reason that we were comfortable acquiring MindGeek, now ALO, is that we were so impressed by their commitment to trust and safety. In particular, their commitment to working hand in hand with law enforcement, to working with organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, to ensure that not only does underage material never appear on the platform with a robust trust and safety program, but those who do attempt to upload this material, those bad actors who try to misuse the platform, they are detected, they are deterred, and their information is given to law enforcement for enforcement action. Because at the end of the day, the reason we're here is that we want a safe and responsible platform. We want wrongdoers to be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. So one of the most eye-opening parts of this for me has been to see the way the trust and safety team works today, from the verified uploader stage, where they verify the identity of anyone uploading, which, by the way, means that they have full accountability and can forward that information to law enforcement if there are allegations of wrongdoing, all the way to the ongoing moderation process, which, as of 2023 is, I don't think anyone would disagree that it really is best in class. There is no other social media platform that pre-moderates every piece of content before it goes up using human and automated tools.
Okay, so can we just talk a little bit about moderations? Because clearly
Absolutely.
in the stuff that came out in California courts, one of the main accusations here is there simply wasn't enough moderation going back a few years. So I see one instance, 700,000 videos that were identified as potentially having illegal content, just one person to go through 700,000 videos. What is the state of moderation now at Ethical Capital Partners?
So within ALO, and I have, been privileged to see this with my own eyes, to review the processes that are in place right now. Every single piece of content before going live on our site goes, number one, through, I think we're about 8 automated third-party and proprietary tools. There we're looking for matches against known content. We're looking for other flags of wrongdoing before it even sees a human. And then every single video and audio is reviewed from beginning to end by a human moderator. We have committed significant resources to doing this. Like, imagine what kind of undertaking this is, right? Like, imagine if you had to wait a few days before you posted, a picture of your food on Instagram. That simply wouldn't be workable. But that we hold ourselves to a higher standard, knowing that real-time moderation is essential. So we have committed significant resources, and every single piece of content is reviewed by a human before it goes live on any of our content sharing platforms.
And how many humans are we talking about? How many people now work in moderation?
Yeah, so it's that number changes, but what I can tell you is, and it's a very significant number, but obviously it changes depending on demands and resources. Every single piece of content is watched by a human. So if you have fewer moderators, that's just going to take longer to get the content up. If you have more, it's going to go up shorter. But at the end of the day, every single piece of content is reviewed and approved by a moderator before it goes live online, without exception.
We're with Solomon Friedman, partner, VP of Compliance at Ethical Capital Partners. Solomon, so one thing I want to get to is what happens in the rest of the industry, because, and it's an interesting argument, but what I hear at times is, well, you know what, we're doing a lot of work here, and maybe it's unfair because if you think about all of the other websites around the world in other countries, they don't have this type of oversight. So how should we be dealing with that? And how do you feel, your company navigates an environment where, people have multiple choices in the market for this type of content? How do you navigate all that?
Yeah, I think actually you sort of hit on the key question here, which is, and the answer has a couple of parts. Number one, we have to be intensely proud about the work that we're doing, not only because it ensures that our platform is safe and responsible, but because it sets a standard for the rest of the industry. Because, as you said, people do have choices. And for me, I don't look at this from a competition or a competitiveness perspective. I say I want to be a leader in this industry in terms of trust and safety. And what that should do, ideally, is that everyone's going to look and say, this is the only way responsibly to approach this type of content. And the standards will rise throughout the industry. But, there's an important aspect here, which is obviously Pornhub is the largest brand, the most visible, it attracts the most attention, and that's fine. But it's important that we're very clear about the work that ALO does day in, day out to keep that platform safe. And ideally, what we want to see happen is, through media interviews like this, the kind of meetings that we're having with parliamentarians, the kind of outreach that we're having, is to start talking about this publicly. So all of the players in this industry will feel comfortable coming forward and saying, hey, this is how we do things. This is where we have a lack. How can you assist? So we can work collaboratively. We all want the same thing, which is a safer internet for adults and young people. That can't happen when these things are happening behind closed doors or people are lobbing insults in media articles, unless we're at the table. And we have taken that first step by being very open and very public, engaging publicly with anyone who will sit down with us, because we think that's going to be better for a safe internet.
It does sound, Solomon, that you are proud of the current state of ALO. ALO, is that how you say it?
ALO, that's right.
But can I ask, just stand off here, if it was 4 years ago and you were working at this company, would you be as proud?
Look, trust and safety is always evolving. The internet has changed monumentally. Forget the past 4 years, you could say in the past 2 years. What we're learning about how to, manage the difficulties of both a content sharing economy, right, the content creator revolution, and the adult industry. I think that those two players had to get comfortable with one another and learn, what works not in adult might not work in adult, and vice versa. But the way you get better is by committing to improving. And I'd say the trajectory of this company, the lessons that have been learned and the improvements that have made are really something very, very much to be proud of. And I'm very proud to be part of the ownership group.
We're going to have to leave it there, Solomon. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That's Solomon Friedman, partner and VP of compliance at Ethical Capital Partners.